Welcome, and thanks for joining us for this virtual career speakers session. We're celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month and Construction Month by interviewing outstanding professionals in their field. Today, we will visit with Ben Galvan, who is the president of Civil Corps in Victoria. Ben will tell us about taking the road to becoming a registered professional civil engineer and beyond as the founder and president of his own firm. Also joining us from Civil Corps is Catherine Mollick, who is a civil engineer in training. Catherine will share with us about her travels along the civil engineering road. And yes, the puns are intended. The session is being recorded and will be available in YouTube shortly. If you have any questions, please type them into the chat. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ben and Catherine.
Well, thank you, Kathy, and good morning, everyone. My name is Ben Galvan, and I am the owner of Civil Corps. Civil Corps is an engineering land surveying company with our corporate office here in Victoria, Texas. We also have a couple of branch offices. We have one in Corpus Christi, we have one in Houston, we have one in Fulshire, and also in Round Rock. A little bit about me. I am from Victoria. I graduated from Victoria High School in 1981. That's 40 years ago. In fact, I'm going to have my 40-year high school reunion next month. So we're looking forward to reconnecting with some old high school friends. I graduated from Texas A&I, which is now Texas A&M Kingsville, in 1986 with a degree in civil engineering. And then in 1994, I graduated with my master's degree in business from the University of Houston here in Victoria. I am a registered professional engineer and also a registered professional surveyor. So a little bit about my work. After I graduated with my civil engineering degree, I worked for the Texas Department of Transportation for about 14 years. In that role, it was mainly started out in the Karnes City office and then moved to the Victoria area office where I was able to work on a lot of exciting projects for TxDOT here in this area. After 14 years, I went to work for a consultant firm for about 8 years, and then I started Civil Corps in 2008. So I've been doing civil engineering work since I graduated in 1986, and most of that work has all been transportation related, and then some development work as well. As the owner of Civil Corps, I manage the overall operations of our business, and we provide civil engineering, land surveying, construction inspection services to developers, to cities, and to the state of Texas. And so we work not just in Victoria, with our other offices, we work all over the state. We've had projects from the Valley up to Amarillo, to El Paso, all the way to Beaumont, and some of those all on the same work week. So you know, it's good that we're able to work throughout the state, and we manage to stay very, very busy. Some of the projects I've worked on locally here in Victoria include Loop 463, which is it's now signed as US 77, but it goes across the Guadalupe River. That was a really exciting project to work on early in my career. It was a brand new route on a new location and crossing the river. So that was a really cool project to work on. Sam Houston Drive, right down the middle of Victoria, was a project we worked on with the city of Victoria. John Stockbauer Drive, Glasgow Street reconstruction, and then more recently Plaza Benavides, which is the new road that leads out to the mall area. That project was finished about a year ago. So it kind of leads me to what I really like about my job is working on projects that we get to design from a concept all the way to a final design, and then through construction. And so we get to design and build projects that many people will use for a really long time. And that's really self-gratifying to be able to have a career that can impact your family, your friends, and the public in such a positive way. So what I'd like to do now is tell you a little bit more about civil engineering, and hopefully we can get some of you guys and gals interested in our field. And I have with me this morning Catherine Malik, who will give a presentation on civil engineering. Catherine is an EIT, that's an engineering training in our office, and she'll actually be testing to become a professional engineer next week. So we're all wishing her well in that endeavor. So I am going to turn it over to Catherine, who is going to talk to you about civil engineering, her role here at Civil Corps, and some of the things that she does. So Catherine.
Thanks, Ben. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So a little bit about me. Ben kind of fluffed up my introduction a little bit. I'm born and raised in Texas, not Victoria native, but kind of Northeast Texas near Tyler and Longview. I went to Texas A&M. I think I'm supposed to say whoop here, but I don't know how that'll go across on Zoom. Yeah. Things that I enjoy doing that aren't work, of course. My husband and I love to travel, and my rescue dogs are about my favorite thing in the world besides my husband, so don't tell him that. Things that I really enjoy about civil engineering, Ben kind of touched on it. We get to immediately, relative to other engineering, we get to see our design a lot faster than most engineering projects. Civil engineering, there's, depending on what you're doing, city and county work, you usually see a quicker turnaround. TxDOT work, I'm sure, has a longer lead time, but you know, you design something and you get to see it in the field, you know, a year and a half or so later. So it's pretty cool. Part of our job, I mean, we design it, but we also get to do the final walkthrough. So you design it, you see how it looks on the computer, and then you actually get to physically, you know, walk through your project. So that's one of the things that I really enjoy about what I do. Let me see. So an overview of kind of what I'm going to be discussing on this presentation is why I chose civil engineering, why I think civil engineering is a good choice, what civil engineering is, specifically what we do, and what's required to become and to stay a civil engineer. So why I chose civil engineering. One really big item for me was job availability and job locations. You can basically look at a map, point to anywhere on the map, and find a civil engineering job there or near there. The town that I'm from is pretty small, but there were civil engineering, like 20,000 people. There were civil engineering jobs there. Victoria is 60,000 people, and there's a few civil engineering firms here. So basically anywhere you want to live, you can live. The pay is good, and I discussed that a little further on, so I won't really touch heavily on that here, but it's right off the bat, once you graduate college, it's about 1.5 to 2 times the national average. So that's good if you like to travel and you like to spoil your dogs. And then me specifically, I really enjoy doing math and I really enjoy problem solving. So once I kind of realized what civil engineering was through my internship, which again, I'll touch on later, but would highly recommend in college. Once I realized what I'd be doing on a daily basis, I knew that this was the right career for me. And then I have these maps over here on the side that kind of show job locations. So my husband's a chemical engineer, so I'm comparing and contrasting. On the left, you can see the employment of civil engineers by state. I don't know, the key takeaway from these charts is we have about 10 times as many opportunities as a chemical engineer or some of the more specific engineers have. So again, location, location, location. You can live basically anywhere that you want, and there's always going to be a job for you. So what we do specifically on our side of the office, Ben said that we have multiple Civil Corps locations. We all do similar but different things. We don't do a lot of TxDOT work over here on the engineering side, but our Houston office does. So Specifically, what we kind of do here is land development, road projects, and always drainage. So land development, retail, restaurants, and subdivisions. One that you guys might be familiar with is Dairy Treat at the corner of Stockbauer and Salem Road. This is an example of a site plan that we'd have to put together for the city, along with other more detailed plans. But the point of this is just to show Salem Road, John Stockbauer. You can see our parking layout. You can see our landscape requirements, the building, how you access the site, you know, the driveway off of John Stockbauer, and then the driveway off of Parkway Churches Drive. And then that's a picture I went out and took the other day. So that's kind of what it looks like now. Hopefully they open up soon. And let's see, the other really big item that we do here is roads. So we don't do a lot of TxDOT work, but we do a lot of city and county work. We deal a lot with new road construction, like Ben mentioned, Placido Benavides, which I've got a pretty good picture of right here. So that's what Placido Benavides looked like during construction. We also do a lot of existing road rehab. It doesn't take pictures quite as well, so I don't have pictures of that. But if there's a road that has drainage problems, that has pavement failure, we fix it. So you kind of get to see all types of problems. You either get to build a new road from scratch and coordinate with utilities. If there's utilities running through where you need to put a road, you have to deal with that. The existing road rehab, you're kind of taking something that's not currently functioning and you're trying to make it better. It's not always perfect, but at least it's an improvement. And these always require drainage coordination and utilities. So drainage is a really big item. That's why I kind of put it on its own slide. Especially here in the coastal plains area, everything is very, very flat. So our questions whenever we're designing drainage or designing a subdivision with drainage is, where does the water go? How fast does the water move? And will you flood your neighbor? You want your drainage to look like the picture on the top left, not the other two pictures. The other two pictures we went out and took, again, another part of the job is whenever it's raining, you get to go look at how your designs are performing when it rains, and you get to see how maybe other things aren't performing. So these are some pictures that we took out in Inez area where there was a pretty decent rain event, but you know, nothing that should have caused road flooding to the degree that it did. And our development is on the left, and I guess the other pictures were not our developments, is I guess all I should say. So that's generally what we do, but an average day for me specifically, I could be doing site layout, like the site plan for Dairy Treat, hydrology, which is drainage, where does the water go, coordination with architects and utility companies. We have to deal a lot with architects because we need to show their door locations, because we need to show how our sidewalks tie into where they want to put their doors. So that's one example of coordination with architects. Utility companies, one of the projects that we're working on now, we have a gas line that runs underneath where we need to put the building. So we have to coordinate with the gas company to get them to relocate the gas line. And lots of emails and memos. And I've heard that only becomes more and more of your day as you go up the chain. So maybe Ben could speak more to that. So I thought these would be some good examples to show you what engineering, construction, and then the completed looks like for our projects. So this is what engineering looks like. You don't see anything. It's all design. We're, you know, in these stages, maybe the client has already bought the land. Maybe he's going to buy the land. Maybe he wants to see if it's feasible to buy the land and put retail or subdivisions on it. This one specifically was a subdivision. And this is where you do a lot of coordination with the city. What does the city want to see here? Victoria doesn't have zoning that I'm aware of, but other larger cities typically do. You know, you can see all around this as subdivisions, so they probably don't want a used car lot or a Walmart supercenter right behind their house. So this specifically was in Bryan, and they had it zoned as residential. So they want houses to go there. Construction looks a little more like this. You see dirt work starts being done. That usually means the design is completed, or hopefully it is. In this stage, you get a lot of changes from the contractor. Whether there was a new fire hydrant that was installed that you didn't know about, that's going to go in the middle of where you want to put your road, or there's something they see in the field and they need to do an adjustment, but they have to get your permission to do it. You're going to see that type of change occurring here, but the design is completed. And then construction is completed. This actually wasn't completely completed. Maybe phase 1 and 2 were built, but not phase 3 quite yet. But at this point, you do your final inspections, you do your walkthroughs, make sure that everything was built according to plans and hopefully built correctly. So if all that sounds interesting, then civil engineering might be right for you. But education and training is going to be required. The first little blurb I have on the screen, I'm not going to read, but it's a blurb from the National Society of Professional Engineers telling you what you need to do to become an engineer. So basically, it's telling you have to have your bachelor's, you have to pass your FE exam, you have to work under a licensed PE for 4 years, and you have to pass your PE exam. So what this looks like on a timeline is you have to graduate. You can take your FE while you're still in school. I recommend taking it maybe towards the end of school or right after you graduate, because there's a lot of, senior level, like college senior level questions on there. You have to work under a PE for 4 years. So even if, like, I took my FE exam a couple months after I graduated, but my 4-year experience requirement started right after I graduated. And then you can take your PE exam anytime after you graduate. Again, I recommend taking it when you're a little further into your career, because there's more practical questions on that, less textbook questions and more practical application questions. And then so once you pass your PE, you have to do continuing education every year. You have to do 15 hours annually, and one of them has to be an ethics course, at least one. So also, when you're selecting a school, when you're choosing where to get your bachelor's from, I think there's a few important things to know. If you've picked your school, you need to look at their entrance expectations. Are they expecting that you be a certain percentage of your class? Are they expecting that you have a certain grade on your ACT, on your SATs? College and program ranks are important, but not the biggest deal. Depends on what you want. I'm kind of a nerd, so I like to nerd out and things like that. When I was at A&M, the civil engineering program was ranked 3rd in the United States. Now, that doesn't mean that A&M was ranked 3rd in the United States for all universities. That just means my specific program. So if you've got a school in mind, you might just want to see what your program's ranked. That might change your mind on schools. Scholarships available and tuition cost. That's not the biggest deal. If you're getting an engineering degree, again, we make 1.5 to 2 times the national average once you graduate. So I paid for my school with mostly student loans, and it's not an issue to pay my student loan payment at the end of the month. And then the most important item is the program ABET accredited. This makes life really easy whenever you're trying to get your PE. If you don't go to an ABET accredited school, which all the ones that I've listed are, all the A&M Tech, U of H, Texas State, and UT, all those are ABET accredited. There's a lot more in Texas that are, but that is one thing that you need to look for. So step 1 of becoming a civil engineer is go to college. things that are, I guess, courses that you're expected to take are going to be, math, science. It's all STEM. It's important for me to understand, the calculus and the fluid dynamics behind the numbers that I'm plugging into a program. You get to hand calculate them all in college, but once you're graduated, once you're actually working, you plug your numbers into a program. But I think having a decent calculus background and fluid dynamics, physics background gives you some basis of what numbers you should expect. Technology is another really big item. All of our design work is done on either AutoCAD or MicroStation. And we frequently have to do reports and generate calculations. So familiarity with the Microsoft Office suite is also a must. Technical writing, memos, emails, reports, that again, any of those can be done on an average day. Often we're doing memos and emails at a minimum, and sometimes generating more technical engineering reports. So knowing how to present your information is really important. And so are soft skills. So teamwork, presentations like this, city council presentations, when you're, trying to say why you're putting a subdivision, where you're putting a subdivision, because a lot of the pushback that we deal with is there's a nice cow pasture that people's houses back up to, and they want to look at the cows all day. And then you come in and put a subdivision, and they don't want to look at houses, they want to look at cows. So presenting your information, sometimes if you're presenting solutions to a drainage problem in front of people who are engineers, you need to know how to explain that to people who are non-technical. So those are very important skills to have too. So step 2, after you graduate, you want to get a job. Again, I wish that I could add an animation where I just like flashed this on the screen, but it is so important to get an internship while you're in college. It pays more than Starbucks, and it gives you invaluable experience. And plus it's good for the company, because if they want to hire you after you graduate, they can pay you a lot less to train when you're an intern than they have to do when you graduate and you're a full-time employee. It looks really good on a resume, but independent of that, just for personal benefit, I started working the beginning of my sophomore year in college. I worked year-round for the same company, and it really worked out for me because I got to see firsthand what I was going to be doing every day. Civil engineering is really broad. I didn't touch on the other parts of civil engineering. I just touched on what we did, but civil engineering is really broad. So I got to see exactly what I would be doing, and I loved it. It's never too late to change your degree. So that would have been a really good wake-up call if I didn't like it. But I don't know. I can't recommend that enough. And you get experience working in an office. You kind of pick up on those soft skills that you need when you're 20 and people don't really expect much of you anyway. So range of salaries once you're full-time. After college, it's about the same across the board. It's around $60,000. A&M shoves this form in your face whenever you're about to walk across the stage to graduate, and they ask you what your degree is and how much you're going to be making, and they generate these really nice tables. So you can see here that from 2019, the average civil engineering salary was around $62,000. It really doesn't vary too much. You can go to Houston, probably make that. You can go to Victoria, probably make that. So I don't think I know anyone who started making $101,000. So if you see that number, just ignore that number. But I would be a horrible person if I didn't also tell you that the average Bachelor of Engineering graduate makes around $70,000. So civil engineering is lower than average for engineering degrees, but along with that comes job stability. You can see kind of on the screen, third from the bottom is petroleum engineering. they might make $107,000 the first year, but the next year they might not have a job. So the job security was worth the trade-off for pay. Texas PE salaries, they vary a lot. It depends on where you are locationally. It depends on what company you're at. It depends on what the company expects you to do. So I have some listed, but you can see on the numbers from Glassdoor that the numbers vary quite a bit. The pay per year from Indeed I thought was really interesting. It kind of goes to show you that less than 1 year, so starting off once you graduate college, I don't know how accurate the $67,000 number is, but less than 1 year until you get your PE, your pay is not going to change a ton. You're still doing a lot of training, you're still doing a lot of grunt work, your pay is not going to really change. Once you get your PE, your responsibilities increase a lot, so your pay increases. So where you see the less than 1 year, $67,000, and the 6 to 9 years, $115,000, it's not going to be $115,000, but I think that this chart's pretty representative of stagnant pay and then a pay bump and increased liability or responsibility, however you want to look at it, when you get your PE. And then the chart from Career Explorer I thought was a nice color-coded graph too, just generally showing there's a lot of information out there. So once you graduate and you're looking for jobs, look at a lot of places and kind of see what you think that you should get paid and, you know, where you want to be. So some other questions on the talking points that we were sent. Are there physical requirements for our job? Not for what we do specifically. So another kind of facet of civil engineering is doing, which we do out of Civil Corps, but I personally don't do, is construction engineering inspections. That would require a little more, I don't know, physical, I don't know the words that I'm looking for. That would be a little more of a physical job. You're out in the field, you're walking around, rain or shine. What I do is mostly in an office. That's kind of also why I chose this. I like being in an office. Safety or personal protective equipment. So sometimes, again, office work, you don't need that. But if you are going to an active job site, so if a contractor calls you and they say, hey, we have this problem, we need you to come out here and look at it, you might have to wear a hard hat, vest, and boots, but they'll tell you, you'll know before you have to go out there. But in my experience, it's not more than that. Career challenges. I haven't experienced challenges, but I will say, I don't know if there's any girls who are watching. It is interesting to be a girl in a male-dominated field. All of your friends are guys, which is weird, but it's not a challenge. I've never really experienced any hardship for being a girl, but it is interesting to hang around with guys all day long. And then I go home and my dogs are boys and my husband's a boy, and I basically have no girls in my life. So that's an interesting aspect of it, but it's certainly not a challenge. And how did COVID affect civil engineering? So for us, our office jobs transitioned to work from home, which I really enjoyed. The infographic on the right-hand side of the page shows someone, dressed up, sitting in an office versus sitting in dressed in loungewear, sitting on a couch with your dog. Minus the sitting on a couch because I didn't work off my laptop. That was basically, what I did. I think that's representative of what most people did. It kind of changes your mentality. You have to be really good at separating work from home whenever you are working from home. But some people liked it, some people didn't. We're all back in the office now. That's certainly good for sharing information. It's a lot easier to share information with your coworkers when you're in the office than it is when you're working from home. A lot of our face-to-face meetings were either canceled or transitioned to Zoom. So or teams. So the other picture I have on here is, you know, just a typical picture of what a meeting could look like. Everyone picks their unique background. Everyone kind of talks over each other. No one was expecting COVID to happen, so no one knew what to do. It was definitely a transition for everybody. For civil engineering specifically, TxDOT lost a lot of funding. They get a lot of revenue from the tax on gas, and people weren't going anywhere. So TxDOT lost funding, but the transportation industry did fare better than average. I have this chart here. The main takeaway is the left-hand side of the chart is the beginning of COVID. The right-hand side of the chart was the very end of last year. Transportation industry is the blue line, and it represents the change in employment across those specific industries. So you can see the green line and the red line, the arts and entertainment and the food industry were really, really hit hard, but transportation fared better than any of the other industries listed. So the gas tax might have hurt TxDOT, but overall, the transportation industry did a lot better than most industries. Again, job security, very important. So that concludes what I have to say. I love to answer questions. So if anyone's got any questions, please let me know. And also, I want to break the ice on questions. When I was an intern, the guys in my office, guys, again, males, the guys in my office were making a really big deal about running this drainage model. On Friday, we're going to run the drainage model. I thought it was a physical model. I thought it was like, you know, a sandbox that they were going to pour water into and see where the drainage went, right? A 3D model of the proposed project. And I asked them, as a naive 19-year-old, I was like, oh, where is the model? What model is this? And then I felt really stupid for asking that question. So there's no stupid questions. Please, if you can think it, I've probably heard it or thought it myself. So let me know.
I have one question so far. As a civil engineer, do you ever have to do any of the actual drafting, either knowing
Yep.
CAD technology, or do we even do hand drafting anymore?
The final product isn't ever hand drafting. Design, sometimes I'll sketch up something by hand, and but for the most part, it's usually in AutoCAD or MicroStation. It's usually in the computer, and that's becoming, I think, more and more important for engineers to have experience drafting. You need to know what you're asking people to design. You can't just sketch something on a sheet of paper and hand it to a drafter. You need to know what you're asking them to put in the computer. So yes, it's very important. If you can take an AutoCAD class, highly recommend it. I don't know of any MicroStation classes, but AutoCAD will at least help you kind of dip your toes in the water and get familiar with what, you know, a design software looks like.
Hey, Kathy, and I'll add this also, that, you know, technology is really the game changer in the industry. When I started back in 1986, I did do hand drafting. I started off with ink and Mylars and doing final products on Mylars, and you know, and slowly we evolved into using computer graphics, and so it's kind of involved now to. The big thing now is almost 3D models, and what we're hearing that TxDOT is going to start doing is actually, instead of doing paper plans, it's all going to just be done in models, and models are going to be given to contractors. So that's going to slowly go away. So, you know, we kind of evolve with the technologies that's out there. But drafting and computer type drafting is really critical to what we do in our field. And, you know, most of the colleges, you may have one drafting class, if any. So what we do with a new graduate, when they come in, if they haven't interned, we have to teach them how to draft. And that's computer drafting, because a lot of the programs that we use are based on some of that CAD work. So you may get a drawing from an architect that's in CAD, and you have to work off of that. So it's critical that our designers and our engineers are also very skilled at computer drafting. So yeah, but that's a very good question.
Kind of a build off of that too, and it may be with some of the other professions, but what about the civil engineers and needing to know about drone technology? Does that come in any to the engineering side?
Yeah, I'll address that one. So yeah, drones are something that's really coming in into our industry. About 5 years ago, personally, I purchased a DHI drone. It was a Phantom 1. It was kind of just a toy. I was going to play around with it, and the first time I flew that, it was, wow, this is the coolest toy I've ever played with. Because I loved airplanes and rockets as a kid. And flying that drone 5 years ago, I was like, wow, this is the best toy I've ever had. And then the next thought was, wow, how can I put this into our business and make money with this thing? And so, so we've actually started, using that for aerial photography. We can use it for backgrounds on our projects. We can actually now create 3D models with our drone. We can survey areas that are really hard to get to. And so from, let's say, a base file standpoint, that tech is really, really good. And it's just getting a lot better. Just last week, we had a project at the Port of Victoria that we flew with a drone. We had some limited survey work on the ground, but most of the data we collected was with a drone and supplemented by the actual field data. Saves a lot of time, it saves a lot of money, and more importantly, it's a safety factor, because now you don't have to have your field crews going out, walking through a swamp with snakes if we can collect it with our drones. And they've come a long way since my Phantom 1. That Phantom 1 probably cost about $1,000 5 years ago. And the latest drone that we purchased is it's a pretty fancy commercial LiDAR drone. So it's got LiDAR tied to it. And I think in total it was excess of 70 grand for that. So it's something that is out there. It's going to be used more and more. We can use it for inspections. If you need to inspect a bridge or something and you can't really see that well, you can send a drone up and do inspections with it. So it's definitely something that is up and coming, and the technology just gets better and better. And so it's really exciting. So in our field, we really like to stay on top of the tech because that just makes us more. We can compete better with other firms if you have the tech. And so you stay on top of the industry. I think you can do really well.
If you had advice for students looking back at your high school times, and again, I know there's a couple of years in between when Ben graduated and when he finished high school, but are there some classes or things you wish you would have done in high school now that might have helped even prepare you better for a career in civil engineering? Any classes you wish you could have taken or could have been offered?
I got pretty lucky with the high school that I went to. We were partially funded by a foundation through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So they had a really strong college emphasis, and not necessarily 4-year. It was it was actually mostly 2-year and a little bit of 4-year, but they recommended that we take drafting classes. So I took, I think, 3 or 4 drafting classes in high school at the local community college. I took college level calculus, which I would honestly say is more of a wash than the drafting. So I personally wouldn't change anything different about what I took, but I had some really good guides telling me the classes that I need to take. I did robotics and I did Model UN for my extracurriculars, so I think those were good experiences to have too. Robotics was just a lot of coding. Model UN was more public speaking. So overall, I think that I got pretty lucky with the classes that they recommended that we take, but I would highly recommend, again, taking drafting classes. If I could untake some classes, it would probably be the college level math. I would recommend waiting to take that until you're actually at the school that you want to be at, because I had the credit. Thankfully, the A&M advisors recommended that I not accept the credit, because when I got to A&M calculus, it was a lot different than TSTC calculus. So yeah, I almost definitely would have failed if I would have accepted my TSTC credit. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend taking the hard maths and sciences, but more of the, if you know you're going to be drafting, which you will with civil engineering, take drafting classes, and get involved in extracurriculars that, you know, kind of help you be a well-rounded person. You don't want to be like a Sheldon Cooper, smart, but you know, you need to be able to talk to people too, which is the, I don't know, thing that people say engineers can't really do very well.
And I echo that. Back in 1981 at Victoria High School, I took 4 years of drafting in high school, and that kind of it kind of led me into the field of engineering, because I like to draw. I enjoyed doing the hand drafting, and you know, that's what kind of led me into engineering, and been doing it ever since. You know, I think as I've kind of moved up the career ladder and started my own company, we've got, you know, young, smart employees like Catherine that kind of take on that daily load. So it makes my job a little easier. I can still draft. I actually have a drafting program on my home computer that I still kind of toy around with every now and then. So but I do it for fun now. We'll let Catherine and the other staff do it for actual work, because they're surely a whole lot more efficient at it.
You still have your engineer scale ruler and your architect scale rulers, Ben?
Yeah, we don't ask about slide rules, because I didn't even didn't get a chance to use the slide rule. When I graduated from high school, the calculators were actually just you know, come into the mainstream. And I remember a high school chemistry and physics class, we were able to use their old TI, I think it was a 55 back then. But so we missed, I personally missed out on the old slide rule. I have one in my drawer, by the way. I don't have one. But that's tech, you know, it goes from that to you know, to a hand calculator, to now you can do everything on your iPhone if you need to. If you have your iPhone in your pocket, you can do anything. But you know, the technology is just incredible, and I'm just excited about the future of tech and how that's going to impact our industry. And I think tomorrow we're going to do a session on GIS, which is part of our surveying group, and then we're going to talk a little bit about surveying. And you know, those fields are just really, really exciting to think about what will be with that tech. It all ties in, all that tech that we do with the surveying and the GIS all ties into our civil engineering, because we use all that information that we gather and we bring that into our civil projects. So this is a really great field to be in. You know, we're always looking for you know, for help. We do have internships. In fact, we had an intern that interned with us for a couple of summers, and then we actually hired him as a full-time employee last summer. And so, you know, as Catherine was saying, you know, for him and for us, it was great. It was a great relationship, and now he's a full-time graduate engineer working for us here in Victoria. And we've done that in some of our other offices as well. So definitely would encourage the young students to look for internships when you get in college, because it will make a big difference in how, you know, you decide if you want this career or not. We actually had one intern that thought he wanted to be a civil engineer. He interned with us for a summer and then said, well, I don't think I want to be a civil engineer. So it wasn't for him. And then that's great. So he learned a really good thing by going through that process. And, you know,
Before he got his degree, before it was a little too
yeah,
late.
so he actually changed, I think, to mechanical engineering is what he changed to. So those are good things to do.
I would definitely echo the value of internships. And
Yes. I do want to add one thing to that. For engineering, the first year of classes are all the same. So if you get an internship your first summer, like after your freshman year, but before your sophomore year, if you get a civil engineering internship and you decide it's not for you and you switch to mechanical, you would have had to take all the same classes anyway, because your first year is going to be calculus and physics. So especially the earlier that you can get the internship, the better, because you're not taking any major specific classes at that point. So it's very, very relatively easy to switch majors.
Hey, Kathy, I do want to add one other thing, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but Victoria College is actually partnering with Texas A&M Kingsville, and they are starting a program to offer some civil engineering courses at Victoria College. And it's a brand new program, but they're actually going to bring some A&M Kingsville professors down to Victoria and teach classes. And so that's something that's up and coming. They started it this fall with, it was just very quick turnaround, so they didn't get a whole lot of enrollment. But that's something that, if there's students that are interested in just, staying in Victoria, that's an opportunity that, that might be out there and be worth exploring. And there's more information to come on that, as the college, starts bringing that on a little more. And then also University of Houston, Victoria is, with their new STEM program is going to be bringing in more engineering classes. And so that's exciting to be able to have some of these opportunities here locally. And I know that UHV is actually looking at some ABET accreditation before they really go full steam ahead. And that was something that Catherine mentioned is the ABET accreditation on an engineering program. So here locally, I think there's some exciting things and some opportunities because not everyone can afford to go off to A&M or to UT, or it's very expensive. And so opportunities here at home are going to be very worthwhile to explore.
Thank you for sharing that, Ben. I think another advantage to it also is that a lot of employers have found that hiring folks locally, that they are familiar with the area, they might want to stay around here. So again, folks that like this area, that also helps out making a connection for students to local employers as well. So I think those two opportunities through our institutions of higher education will benefit many within the community. So that's
absolutely
bringing that up. So yes, and one other build to bring up, I'm talking about to our students out there that you heard the experiences from both Catherine and Ben about what they wish they would have taken in high school. And I just would like to make a note that I too had wanted to be an engineer when I was in high school. I graduated several years before Ben did. And at that time, I had to go before the school board in my hometown to convince them that I should be able to take the shop classes and not be forced to take home ec. Because at that time, girls, you took home ec, and boys, you took shop classes. And so definitely students out there, the times have changed. You have so many opportunities. And I think both of these folks have spoken to the fact that look around, talk to your counselors and really think about what will make you successful. And I appreciate Ben and Catherine, you both sharing today your educational and your career experiences that we have. I don't see any more questions, so a lot of them were answered along the way. But we so appreciate the information about the civil engineering career field, your openness, and definitely the tips that you gave us on how to be successful. So for folks online, again, this recording will be up on YouTube for you to view again. And also feel free to share the links with others who might be interested in a great career in civil engineering. So we just want to thank everybody and wish you well. So I will stop the recording now, and we will catch you all hopefully in some other sessions.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you both.